On today's Hot Zone, we're going to be talking about environmental theater. That's coming up right now. Hi, folks. Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone. We've got a lot of stuff coming up for you today. And before I get to the topic I want to talk about, first, I want to mention a couple of things. First, you need to go over and get the Telegram app and look up the Hot Zone podcast on the Telegram app, because I'm sharing a ton of content over there. We're growing by leaps and bounds. And it really is a much more interactive platform that will let me share not just videos, not just audios, but text and photographs and articles I read, and it'll let you also sort of participate and comment on what's going on. So I highly recommend you go over and get the Telegram app and look up the Hot Zone podcast over there. Secondly, I'm going back to Armenia the first week of May, and I had so many people that have said, man, I would love to see that. Oh, I really love your pictures from over there. Oh, I wish I could carry your suitcase someday. That I decided to just open it up. And if you want to go to Armenia with me, you can go. It's $899. Then that covers your lodging and your ground transportation and one meal a day. And it's pretty cheap over there, so it won't cost a whole lot more than that besides just airfare to get there. So you pay for your airfare, $899 for everything else, all included. And we will explore Armenia together right at the height of springtime. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. You're going to love it. So I highly recommend that you go. There's a few slots left, but it is filling up quickly. So get your slot while you can. To get that, you have to go to bit.ly/Armenia 2021. So bit.ly/Armenia 2021 is the link you follow to get there. And I'll put it also in the show notes at the bottom of the screen. Now, on to what we have to talk about today. The late Michael Crichton, the author, a great fiction writer, used to say that the pressing challenge of our time is to distinguish truth from falsehood, truth from error. That's really been sort of the human condition throughout history, is how do you form a cohesive worldview that will explain the world around you and help you understand what's true and what's not, what's right and what's wrong, all around throughout your whole life. And people come up with a lot of different worldviews to try to answer those questions and to try to determine what's right from wrong, what's true from false. In today's postmodern world, a lot of people try to do that by just denying the very existence of truth. And to do that is sort of self-contradictory. It commits suicide by itself when you say that it's true that there is no truth. You cannot deny or get away from the fact that truth is a thing. The truth exists in this world, and it exists apart from you, objectively, and it doesn't have to do with your feelings. It's not like a flavor of ice cream that you get to choose the one that suits you. Truth is what is actually real. And your opinion about what's real doesn't change the fact that it's real. You don't get to make the sky turn purple because you think it's purple. The sky is what it is. And whether or not you perceive it correctly, whether or not you believe what you're seeing is irrelevant to the truth. So when we take that and we apply it to what we see today going on around us, especially actually this week I've been doing reporting on the new administration canceling the Keystone XL pipeline. And I've learned a lot about energy policy and about the pipeline industry and the energy industry, especially fossil fuels here in the United States. And I wanted to share some of that with you. But before I get to that, I want to explain a little bit more about this concept of truth, finding truth and having a worldview that tells you what truth is. And I want to do that by bringing in author Michael Crichton and a talk that he gave answering some questions from students before he died. This is where he's talking about environmentalism as a religion. So I'm going to let him explain.
You stated in your remarks to the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco that one of the most powerful religions in the Western world is environmentalism. Can you explain why you refer to environmentalism as a religion?
Because I have training in anthropology, The idea that anthropologists have about what constitutes a religion or what functions a religion serves are a little bit different from how you think about it if you categorize religions as, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, something like that. So from the standpoint of an anthropological view, a religion is a collective set of beliefs. There is a leader or leaders who promote the beliefs among the followers. Followers make some kind of contribution or change in their lifestyle based on the religious belief. The religious belief gives them a total view of the world in terms of how the world is structured, what's right, what's wrong, what's good action, what's bad action. That all fits perfectly onto environmentalism. The other thing that environmentalism does, which I said to this group, is that it rather precisely maps a lot of Judeo-Christian beliefs about the origin of the world and so on. So that in environmental thinking, there is a view that there used to be a sort of Eden, and then people came and ruined that Eden, and that we are therefore sort of original sinners because we're destroying this planet. And what we can do, however, is get salvation through sustainability. And if you're a good person, you will seek salvation, and if you're a bad person, you'll drive SUVs. That is a kind of a religious belief. That was my argument.
To fear you were very negative towards environmentalism. What caused you to be so prejudiced towards this religion?
Well, I don't think it should be a religion, and I don't know. It's interesting that you said it was prejudice. That it's a disagreement. I'm not sure it's a. I would argue it's not a prejudice. That it's a different way of seeing things. The core of my argument is that if you're going to be responsive to the environment is always changing, and our understanding of the environment is always changing. And if we are to do better with the environment that we do now, and I would tell you that at this moment we have raw sewage seeping out of the Yellowstone National Park. So we're not doing a great job. I mean, I mention the parks because the parks are unlike land use where there's conflicts about should we build a house or should we build. The parks are set aside. The parks are there for us to preserve them. And it turns out we don't know how to preserve them. And we won't admit that we don't know how to preserve them. It's been a disaster what we've done. And so when I look at how we treat the environment, I think we have to be flexible. I think we have to try things and see how they turn out. We have to be ready to change course. We have to be able to adapt. We have to say we're wrong, and let's do it right. We have to do research. This is all stuff that fundamentalist religions can't do. And if environmentalism is a kind of fundamentalist religion, then that's not a good way to manage the environment. We need a scientific approach. We need a non-religious approach. We need a way to look at this and do better than we've done. A lot better. It's essential. It's essential for you guys and, for your children.
Okay, so if you hear what he was saying there, he's saying that environmentalism in the United States today is as much a religion as Christianity or Hinduism or Buddhism or Muslim, Islam or anything like that. And it has very similar facets to it. So if you take Christianity per se, we have the concept of the Garden of Eden. And in environmentalism, the Garden of Eden was earth before man started to destroy it, when men lived at peace and harmony with nature. And if you really go back and study that, that really was never the case. There really was never a time when man lived in perfect harmony with nature, except in the actual Garden of Eden, if you believe in that. So I believe in the Bible and what the Bible says about the Garden of Eden, and it says that man lived in harmony with the nature around him by having dominion over the nature. Okay, that doesn't mean that he never cut down a tree, that he never squashed a flower, a blade of grass. It means that he had dominion over the nature around him, the world around him, and that was given to him by God. But environmentalism says that the noble savage that roamed the continent of the United States before it was the United States lived in harmony with nature. Well, they didn't really. They burned everything to the ground. They killed off their enemies. They pushed out the people that were there before them. And it was a pretty brutal, short, and dangerous life. But again, environmentalism doesn't believe that. They believe that this was this, they romanticize this idea of the Native Americans, the first peoples, as they call them, living in harmony with nature. Nothing was ever wrong with them until the evil white men came along and started to wreck everything. Well, then, so that's original sin. We were born into original sin, especially being white. As a white man, I was born into original sin in the environmentalist religion, just simply by the fact that I was white and that I was a man. I have privilege that I have to look out for, and I have to deny and admit and feel bad about my privilege. These are things that environmentalist theology would have me believe. And there is such a thing as sanctification. There is such a thing as redemption. I can be redeemed from my white privilege by standing up for social justice. I can be redeemed from it by eating organic food and by offsetting my carbon footprint and seeking to be carbon neutral in everything I do in life. That would be redemption, and maybe I can reach heaven, which would be in environmental theology sustainability. We see all these kinds of things. We even have high priests in the environmental religion. Al Gore and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are sort of high priests of this religion. Well, it's all bunk. First of all, none of that stuff is correct. If you really were to do a unbiased, I'm not saying we shouldn't take care of the environment. Of course we should. God gave us dominion over the environment. That means he put us in charge of it. We're supposed to take care of the things God put us in charge of. We're supposed to put those things ahead of our own well-being sometimes. When God tells us to care for our family, that someone who doesn't care for his own family is worse than an infidel, worse than an unbeliever. It means that we're supposed to put other people ahead of ourselves, but we're never supposed to put the creation above the creator. And we are the magnum opus of God's creation. And so we should never put the creation, the environment over the people. We should always do everything in terms of the people are preeminent here on earth, and God is preeminent over people. So suffice it to say that when we look at, I've been asking myself lately as I do this research into the canceling of the Keystone XL pipeline, that the fact that, okay, there are already millions of miles of pipeline around the world. There are hundreds of thousands of miles of pipeline here in the United States. There are dozens and dozens of pipeline projects right now under construction here in the United States. The Keystone XL is actually a replacement for a pipeline. The Keystone pipeline is already functioning. And the one that they're putting in, that they want to put in with the Keystone XL, would be much safer, much more modern, much more efficient, and carry a lot more energy. Well, energy is growing. I mean, you're watching this. Everything in our whole world uses electricity, and you probably feel like I do. You probably couldn't survive without the internet anymore for very long, because that's how we communicate nowadays. Well, all of those things take fuel, and for all the talk of transitioning to alternative forms of energy, we're not going to be able to do that on a dime. The fossil fuels and the legacy energy right now makes up about 89% of all the energy that we consume in the United States. That means 11% is alternative fuels. You're not going to just flip a switch and go 100%. You have to increase alternative fuels by over 900% to get rid of fossil fuels in America. That's not going to happen in the next 4 years. It's not going to happen in the next 10 years or even 30 years. It's just not. And when's the last time you tried to, eat sunlight? When's the last time you tried to, paint your house with wind? I mean, there are a lot of products that come from petroleum besides the energy that we consume. And those things really don't have good alternatives at this point. So unless you want to go back to the dark ages, we need fossil fuels. And that's just all there is to it. And when you look at wanting to make the environment cleaner, if you really cared about that, if you really cared about making the environment cleaner and safer, then you'd want pipelines everywhere, because pipelines are one of the cheapest, safest, most efficient ways to transport energy in the world, especially the technology we have today. That energy, that oil, that natural gas, whatever it is going to get to market. It has to, because the market's demand for it is growing. And if we don't send it to market in a pipeline, we have to send it to market some other way. So like a train or a boat or a barge or a truck, something like that. All of those things take orders of magnitude more carbon emissions or emit more carbon emissions than using a pipeline does. It's more expensive. It creates fewer jobs. Because the economy won't be able to grow as much. It's more dangerous. There's more likely to be spills and fires and explosions and things like that if you're transporting crude oil by truck than there is if you're putting it through a pipeline. So it leads me to wonder, why in God's name would President Biden make one of his first priorities canceling a big modern new pipeline that is, again, replacing an old pipeline that's already there? So it's not like it's a matter of starting a whole new one all over again. It's replacing. Now, it is a shortcut. It makes it more efficient, but this is a pipeline. The Keystone XL pipeline is already partially in operation. They're only talking about finishing about 330 miles of it, I believe, that will go from like the Canadian border down to Nebraska or something like that. And the rest of it is already in place. So why are we putting all these American jobs out of business? And why are we shutting down this pipeline when we're just going to force that same oil, that same natural gas, or whatever, to go via other methods that are much more polluting? It doesn't make any sense at all unless you see environmentalism as a religion. Okay, you start, because when it's a religion, you can hold fast to your dogma and you don't have to keep an open mind about science or facts or anything like that. Now, if they really cared about the environment, they would do exactly what they've been doing, and that's or what the Trump administration was doing, and that's pushing full speed ahead with pipelines and other methods like nuclear energy. If you really wanted to have very, very clean environment, we'd go to all nuclear energy, because nuclear energy is the cleanest energy out there. We're so far removed from Chernobyl. I've done reports about Chernobyl. I've been to Chernobyl a couple of times. The American technology that we have today for nuclear power is so far and away better than anything that they had in the Soviet Union in 1986. And our standards are so much higher. Now, look, that's one other thing. If we don't put in these pipelines, if we don't bring this energy into the United States, if we don't frack our own energy, not only are we making ourselves dependent on foreign sources of energy, but those foreign sources of energy that are going to have to be developed to feed our appetite for energy are much, much, much dirtier when it comes to carbon emissions. I've been all around the world, and I should put together a montage of the energy producing places that I've been to, like the oil fields in Kurdistan, the oil fields in Venezuela, the oil fields overseas in many other places around the Middle East. All of them are without a doubt much, much dirtier than anything you'd see here in the United States. I'm going to go find that footage if I can, and I'm going to put that together and bring it to you, probably over on the Telegram channel. So I want to just end today's podcast by saying that over the next couple of podcasts, I'm going to be airing some interviews that I've done this week with people about this subject. I've interviewed pipeliners who have been laid off. I've interviewed farmers who will be adversely affected by the canceling of these pipelines. And I've interviewed politicians who are trying like heck to fight against this rampant abuse of the American people by the Biden administration and the people on the left. So stay tuned, because we got some really good stuff coming, and you're going to see some stuff over the next few podcasts that you're not going to see anywhere else. Okay, so stay tuned. We'll see you. I'm Chuck Holton, and this is a Hot Zone.